Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, There and Pack Again. Today we are back at the Singapore series, and if you haven't watched part 1, 2, and 3, make sure to check them out. I will leave the links below. Today we are back at exploring Singapore, and the first place we are going to is Chinatown. We are on a quest to find a famous wall mural by Yip Yew Chong in Chinatown. We are going through this old part of the city, but before we could actually reach that wall mural, or I'm gonna call it painting because it's a lot easier for me to pronounce, we passed by one of the oldest Hindu temples in Singapore. Well, this is a painting that we wanted to stop and take a look, but because we could not turn right at this intersection, we have to make a big loop around this block. What you're looking at in the front is the Singaporean government housing built by the government for their people. It's not the older building that you see immediately, but it's the building way in the back. And I believe we just turned onto the Temple Street. Another name for the Temple Street given by the Chinese who lived there is a word that actually means a street behind the theater. So not far from here in this neighborhood, there is a theater for Chinese opera, which is the inspiration for this street painting by Yip Yew Chong. The painting or the wall mural is quite far from the entrance of this street, but bear with me, we're gonna get there. And here I am, and I will alight to show you the painting. By the way, I recall there is another word for alight, and that is to disembark from the car. As I mentioned, the artist was inspired by the Chinese opera theater that was around the neighborhood, and I believe he also went to during his childhood. You can see in the details, there is quite a good blend between the Chinese culture and people from other ethnicity who lived there. I was told that if it's a Yip Yew Chong painting, you can look for signs like a cat and some fish. Could you see one? So that was a highlight from Chinatown. And if you know but you didn't know, that afternoon in Singapore, there were really cute clouds up above in the sky. It is called stratocumulus. These clouds actually help make the earth cooler than if they were not there because they reflect a lot of sunlight back to the space. Okay, enough about clouds. We headed into the city center of Singapore. We went to the financial district and where all the hotels and tall buildings are, the high rises. But you can see that even in the tiny little spaces over there, they were still very diligent in planting trees. A lot of green spaces that make the city cooler indeed. And we were headed to the city center of Singapore now. The first place that I wanted to show you is actually a cathedral that was built a long time ago. And this magnificent white building is called the St. Andrew Cathedral. We were walking inside. There are actually multiple sanctuaries. This is one of them that was opened at the time. Up next, we walked and walked and found this amphibian vehicle that could take you on the road and into the river, but obviously this is a walking tour and we didn't take it. And then we stumbled upon this old Parliament of Singapore. Now it is an art house and a restaurant. Right in the front there is an elephant granted by a previous king of Thailand. And now right around the corner from the old parliament is the former Supreme Court. Right now it is the National Gallery of Singapore that you could go inside and take a look at some of the exhibitions. Inside, to me, it looks like there are two buildings that are joined next to each other, and they try to modernize everything. You know, there is a playground for children and also an area for you to rest or to walk around and enjoy the art. Because this is an old Supreme Court, right in front of this is actually where law students like to take pictures after their graduation. Beautiful, right? We then walked toward the higher rises area. You can see a contrast between the less tall and the taller buildings. For example, this was the tallest hotel in the world when it was first built. That was the Swissotel. Now it's still one of the tallest. Anyways, not far from that, there is also this Raffles Hotel, which is like a British colonial style hotel that was built a really long time ago. This is another iconic landmark in Singapore. Something that's quite nice about this hotel is actually they honor the longest working employee here, the iconic Raffles doorman. His picture is posted on the wall inside the hotel. We then headed toward the Long Bar. This is a very famous place of Raffles Hotel. Do you know why? Well, in this particular bar is where the original Raffles Hotel Singapore Sling, a cocktail in Singapore, was invented. The Long Bar was actually not here originally, but it got moved to the second floor of this part of the hotel. Iconic it is that the guests who entered would eat the peanuts with the shells and leave the shells on the floor. And that's about the Raffles Hotel. It was diagonally across from the Raffles Hotel. Here I enter a shopping mall that used to be a convent. This is the convent of the Holy Infant Jesus Middle Education School, CHIJMES. Well, I learned that day that the Singaporeans pronounce this place CHIJMES. This is an old cathedral of a convent school, but right now it is a pretty fancy shopping mall where you can enjoy tea, burgers, or things that you would probably be looking for after a long days of walking. Inside the cathedral, they still keep the old decorations like the stained glasses and everything else that you would expect to find in a church. They add a bit more of the chandeliers and turned it into a hall where you could hold a party or a wedding ceremony, something like that. Right next to CHIJMES is another cathedral, the Cathedral of a Good Shepherd. I don't know much of the history of this location, except that it is still a cathedral, a Catholic church. Since it was a Sunday afternoon, I think they were just finishing up with the Mass. I saw a couple of tourists, I think, walked in to check out the cathedral inside. This cathedral is actually really close to Singapore Art Museum, SAM. SAM is not missing in action, but a museum in action where you could explore interactive arts. I didn't go inside SAM, but I continued further and I went into the Church of Saints Peter and Paul. This is a historic site somewhat, and there was also an evening mass going on, so I didn't actually meander further, just popped in to take pictures and then left. I was getting closer to my final destination, the National Museum of Singapore, but before that I was passing by the Singapore Management University. This area is really green and it's a lot cooler than the concretes outside. Inside the National Museum of Singapore, there is a permanent exhibition where they showcase the history of Singapore way back until the 14th century, and also several other special exhibitions. I will not be showing what they showcase inside the museum in the exhibitions. I'm leaving them to you to experience them yourself. Except, I will be showing my favorite exhibition, The Story of the Forest. This is an immersive 3D animation transformed from their original collective pieces of arts in Singapore. And these are the highlights of the light immersive experience featured inside a 3-story tall glass dome inside the museum. Since it was already in the evening, the museum has closed, but it's not too late and the sun was still out. So I actually got to explore my final destination. And that is Fort Canning Park. The park is also a historic site where they feature old places like the forts that were used during the Second World War. But if you only want to go there and enjoy the evening, obviously you could. And that's it, everyone. This is the end of my 4th part on my series on Singapore. I hope to see you back in the 5th and last episode of the series. Until next time, bye bye.